Militanyena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaham Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everyone to our ongoing study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're on third canto, Kapila Siksha, and today we're looking at chapter number 32. Hare Krishna. I don't know. How do I get out of this?
Recording stopped.
I'm going to have to leave for a minute and come back.
जी पूरा हाँ वो बड़ो बेडशीट हो गए बड़ो बेडशीट वो उसमें दे वो साइड में दे देगी ना.
Can you enable me to share the screen, please?
Welcome back, Maharaj.
Yeah, sorry, I just have a problem with that.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so we're on chapter number 32. Okay, wait, that was the one I want. Connection with the previous chapter. We're still answering Devahuti's questions from the 29th chapter when she inquired that she wanted to hear about eternal time. So we heard some things of it. We did hear about the effects of eternal time and how it brought so much suffering, for people in the mode of passion and ignorance. We heard about taking birth again, the child in the womb taking birth. We heard about going to Yamaraj and being taken by the Yamaduras and punished by Yamaraj, and then taking birth again and the child in the womb. What we did not hear, which we will be hearing today, is, you can see Devahuti asks a question at the end of the last question. She says, please also describe eternal time, which is a representation of your form, and by whose influence people in general engage in the performance of pious activities. So we were looking mainly in chapter 30 and 31 about people performing sinful activities. So today we'll hear about people who perform pious activities and see what happens to them. Does that actually solve the problem? If we may not be devotees, but if we act with piety, will that change the situation? Is that going to save us? Here you can see chapter 30, we spoke more about tamagun. The tamagun, lust, anger, greed, violence, uncontrolled senses, these problems. We heard how people are very greedy, try to get more money, and they'll do so many things. Then we heard also about the hellish planets, or hellish punishment. The Yamadura comes to arrest the fallen soul, and we're punished in different hellish conditions. Here you can see. We may be born as an animal, and later as a human being, come back gradually to the human form of life, go through different species of life according to our karma. So that was all in chapter 30. And then chapter 31, we heard about the child in the womb and the development of the body in the womb. We heard about the suffering the child in the womb undergoes and how he becomes conscious after 7 months. And some pray, not all pray. Okay, the soul suffers in the mother's womb, the prayers by some children in the womb, but then after birth, although they prayed when they were in the womb, after they come out of the womb, then they forget everything. They take birth, they've taken birth again, and they're enamored by the material nature, and they forget all about the suffering they went through in the womb, and they try to enjoy the material world. And then we also heard, in a very powerful manner, about the danger of bad association. Bad association, particularly in the form of illicit connection with the opposite sex, and people who are very much attached to these kind of things. That kind of association is very harmful for us. And then finally the chapter spoke about reclaiming our original spiritual nature. So we're going to go on today to hear about entanglement in fruitive activities. In other words, we desire to enjoy the results of our work. So people who perform pious activities, they have that tendency. They like to enjoy the fruits of their work. Here's the connection from the previous chapter. Having explained the results of condemned sinful activities in chapters 30 to 31, now Kapila explains the results of prescribed activities with material desire. Living in his house, he enjoys the results of the various dharmas, kama, artha, and dharma, and again he performs those dharmas. And these are the words of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary to this section on Srimad Bhagavatam. So, because of our material desires, we're performing activities, we desire to enjoy the results of the work. So this is Karma Kanda. You can see the path of Karma Kanda beginning with material dharma, and the purpose of material dharma is artha, and purpose of artha is kama. So like that, people get stuck in this kind of cycle, dharma, artha, kama, and they never get to moksha. That's one of the problems with the path of Karma Kanda, that they never get out of that. And then from Barijan Prabhu's book on this section, in his book Unveiling the Lotus Feet, he has written that although in chapter 31, Kapila Muni implanted fear in the heart of the listeners by describing the horrific results brought by the attempt to enjoy contrary to Shastric regulations, one may nevertheless wonder if one can be happy and avoid suffering and rebirth through pious, non-devotional following of Shastra. By delineating the results obtained by the followers of various paths of karma, Kapila Muni will answer that question. So Kapila Muni will answer, he's going to describe about different paths. Not everybody is a devotee, of course. Not everybody follows the path of bhakti yoga. So there are many different people. What kind of results do they get? We want to understand about the results of performing some kind of actions, trying to show piety, trying to avoid suffering. Let's have a look and see what happens in this chapter. So Kapila Muni begins by first of all describing about the Sakarma Karmi. The Sakarma Karmi. In other words, he's a karmi and he's attached to material desires. But he's doing activities according to Vedic principles. He's a karmi. Karma is performing karma, which is prescribed in the Vedas. And he's doing it to enjoy the results. So what will happen to him? So he reaches the heavenly planets, and he will enjoy his pious activities, and he will stay there as long as he has piety, and when it's finished, then he'll come back down again. That's the beginning of the chapter. That you can go to the heavenly planets, but you're not going to stay there forever. You just go up there according to the extent of your piety, and then you come back. But then Kapila Muni goes a bit higher, and he explains about the Niskam Karmi. The Niskam Karmi, he is not thinking about enjoying the results so much, but he wants to get out of the material world. He wants to actually get free from the results. So he advances towards the spiritual sky. He will go up to planets like maybe the sun or the moon, and from there then he will go on to Brahmaloka, the higher planets, and maybe with the end of Brahma's life, then he will go to the spiritual sky. He's following Vedic regulations, but he's not trying to enjoy any results himself. He wants liberation. And then Kapila Muni tells us about people who worship Haranyagarbha. Haranyagarbha meaning, meaning Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So they reach Satyaloka, the planet of Lord Brahma. And at the end of the life of Brahma, then they will also be liberated. They have to wait there. In other words, they have to wait for the end of Brahma's 100 years of his lifetime. And then at that time, when the whole universe is annihilated, then they can go with, maybe they'll go with Brahma, and they may enter the spiritual sky. Or they may simply enter Mahavishnu. Sometimes Brahma also comes back. That is described, verses 12 to 15. Without bhakti, no one can enter the spiritual sky. So it doesn't matter who you are. You may be Lord Brahma, or you may be one of the 4 Kumaras, but if you don't have bhakti, you're not going to get into the spiritual sky. You're not going to get free of the material world. Then text 16 to 21, we'll hear about the Sakarma Karmi, how he is condemned. Sakarma Karmi, that was described at the very beginning of the chapter. The person who is performing some activities according to scriptures, but simply for his own sake, for his own pleasure. Then text 22 to 26 describe the conclusion, and the conclusion, of course, is that you have to become a devotee, you have to do devotional service. And then the rest of the chapter, well, first of all, 27 to 38, we're going to hear Kapila Muni review what he's been teaching, the basic results of Astanga, Jnana, Bhakti, Kala, and Samsara. All of these different things which have been covered within this section of Kapila Muni's teachings. It will all be presented. It's in a very brief manner. Because Kapila Muni's pretty much finished his teaching, he's just summarizing it. And then the end of the chapter we'll hear who should be instructed in Sankhya Yoga. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says who should get this knowledge and who shouldn't. So similarly with Kapila Siksha, he's also describing who should be instructed in this, who's qualified to receive this. And then the final verse, the fruit, the phalasruti, the fruit of studying this section of Kapila Muni, you'll hear. All right, so we'll go ahead. Here's the first verse. Okay, the first verse. Sakama karma, chewing the chewed. Right? Chewing the chewed. That's sakama karmi. He's chewing the chewed. He's trying to enjoy, but there's no real enjoyment there. So Lord Kapila describes the person who lives in the center of householder life derives material benefits by performing religious rituals, and thereby he fulfills his desire for economic development and sense gratification. Again and again, he acts the same way. So, this is the description of the Grihamedi. Not Grihastas, but Grihamedis. Grihamedis, they want to enjoy their family life for their own pleasure. They have no spiritual purpose. They may perform religious rituals, but they perform them for material benefit. And so because they're doing religious rituals, they get results, they get economic development, and they have sense gratification. And this way they're thinking they're happy. But it's all temporary. They still are faced with the problem of old age, disease, and death. They have to give up the body, they'll take birth again. And again, they act the same way. You die in the mode of goodness, you'll come back again in the mode of goodness. They didn't really make any spiritual advancement because their purpose was simply to enjoy the material world. And they were attached to the material world, so they come back into a similar situation which they left. And of course, they may even go down. They may even take birth in the lower species of life. It depends. It's very dangerous. We know from the Krishna Lila about Maharaj Nriga, he was also doing this kind of thing. He wanted to enjoy, he was doing so much charity, wonderful charity he was doing, and he was thinking he would enjoy, but he made a mistake. Unknowingly, he gave one cow away, which he'd already given to another Brahmana. And as a result of that, he had to suffer the sin of stealing from a Brahmana. So like this, of course then Nriga, he had to take birth as a lizard in a well. He had to suffer. So that's the danger with these kind of activities, karma-kandi activities. All right. Oh, we can have somebody read the other texts. Text 2, 3 and 4. Someone like to read for us?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, may I ask one question?
Yes.
Maharaj Nigra, the example that you mentioned, he gave the lizard, he gave the cow to the Brahmans, so that was for his sense gratification.
He gave the cow to the Brahmana for his sense gratification. Huh?
Yeah, I am having this doubt actually, Maharaj.
What?
So this Brahman, the Brahman were given the cow by Maharaj Nigri, because of which he became a lizard. There was some, so he gave it for basically a karm kand ritual.
Well, he was giving charity. He would give the cows in charity to Brahmanas. He was giving many cows in charity to the Brahmanas. It's a very high level of charity. To give a cow in charity to a qualified person like a Brahmana is a very high level of charity. And so he gave cows to the Brahmana in charity, but somehow by mistake, one cow which he'd given to one Brahmana was later on given to another Brahmana. And so the Brahmanas complained that you gave this cow to me.
But then Maharaj, there was not any intentional mistake of Maharaj Niga. I mean, what was the wrong thing which he did, because of which he became a lizard in the well?
Because he gave the same cow away to another Brahmana. He didn't do it intentionally, but still he had to suffer the reactions. The two Brahmanas were not happy. The Brahmana said, you give the cow to me, then you give it to the same cow to another person. That's like stealing from a Brahmana. And that's what happened. That's why he got the body of a lizard, because he was considered guilty of stealing from a Brahmana. He'd already given the cow to a Brahmana, and then he took it and gave it to another Brahmana. So it was like he stole the cow from a Brahmana.
So Maharaj, this is basically, this Maharaj Niga, he was he was following this karm kandik ritual, or he was basically, I could not understand and relate the context of Maharaj Niga with the Graham Edi.
You could not understand what?
The context of example of Maharaj Niga with the Graham Edi, which we are discussing in this 3.32.1.
Well, I'm describing the danger of performing karma-kandi activities.
Okay, so this charity of giving cows to Brahmanas is part of the karma-kandic activities.
Yes.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
It depends, of course. It can be done in devotion, but he was doing it as a karma-kandi activity. He desired to enjoy the result of the charity. He actually had a strong desire to go to heaven and to enjoy material opulence in his next life. So he was giving that charity. Now you may give cows in charity to a Brahmana in pure devotion. That's a different thing. But he was not doing it in devotion. He was doing it to enjoy the results.
Yes, Maharaj. So he wanted to go to heaven by giving cow to Brahman.
Yes.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, now I wanted somebody to read text 2, 3 and 4. Yes, somebody can read, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, Maharaj. Text 2. Such persons are ever bereft of devotional service due to being too attached to sense gratification, and therefore, although they perform various kinds of sacrifices and take great vows to satisfy the demigods and forefathers, they are not interested in Krishna consciousness devotional services.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. Text 3. Such materialistic persons attached by sense gratification and devoted to the forefathers and demigods can be elevated to the moon, where they drink an extract of the Soma plant. They again return to this planet. Text 4. All the planets of the materialistic persons, including all the heavenly planets such as the moon, are vanquished when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, goes to his bed of serpents, which is known as Anantashena. Sheshan. Text 5.
No, that's okay. Text 4. Thank you. All right, so the karma kandi was described in those verses. How they're attached and they desire their own elevation in the material world. They don't actually desire to go back to Godhead. They simply worship the demigods and they desire to enjoy the fruit of their piety. All right, so we're going ahead. Next we hear about the Nishkam Karma Yogi, described in verses 5 to 7. Superior to the Grihamedis, we were just hearing about the Grihamedis, are those who perform their work with detachment, dutifully in purified consciousness, free from a sense of proprietorship, and not swayed by sensual desires. So you can see the difference between the Grihamedi and this Niskam Karma Yogi. They're detached. They do the activities as a sense of duty, with pure consciousness. They don't think themselves to be the proprietor, quite different from the Grihamedi. The Grihamedi's thinking he is the proprietor. And they're not swayed by sensual desires, unlike the Grihamedi. So such detached workers can be divided into two groups, Niskam Karma Yogis and Bhaktas. They're both detached. You see, one is the devotee and the other is the Niskam Karma Yogi. There's a subtle distinction between the two. Not a big distinction, but subtle distinction is there. The Bhaktas, they're devotee to the Supreme Lord Krishna. The Niskam Karma Yogis are just simply detached and they're doing everything out of duty. By Niskam Karma Yoga, one gradually approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the path of illumination through the sun planet. The sun planet being one of the heavenly planets, you see, it's on the way back home, back to Godhead. So the Niskam Karma Yogi, he gradually approaches Krishna. He gradually goes back to Godhead. But devotee, the bhaktas, they can go back quickly. Devotees, however, are quickly taken back to Godhead by the Lord himself. All right, so nice comparison there between the devotee and the Niskam Karma Yogi.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, may I ask one thing?
Okay.
Maharaj, you mentioned that there is a subtle distinction between Nishkam Karma Yogis and Bhaktas. So you mentioned that Nishkam Karma Yogis, they do the karma activity as a part of their duty, and Bhaktas, they do the activity for serving the Supreme Lord. So is this correct, Maharaj?
Yes.
And you also mentioned that Nishkam Karma Yogi, it approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the path of illumination through the sun planet. This I could not understand, Maharaj.
Well, the Niskam Karma Yogi, he's not going straight back to Godhead. He goes up to the higher planets, goes up to the heavenly planets. The sun planet is on the way back home, back to Godhead. It's on the way out of the universe. So he has to go step by step. You see, he goes up to the sun planet. The sun planet, of course, is fire. And so in the sun, he goes there in his subtle body, and he gets purification, further purification, before he goes back to Godhead. Because without having devotion, he can't go back to Godhead. He has to have devotion to go back to Godhead.
So his subtle body is actually, basically dissolved in sun planet, and he gets purified.
No. Subtle body is not dissolved. The subtle body goes up, takes him up to the sun planet, but it gets purification on the sun planet.
Okay, so he's purified, he's basically getting exposure to devotional service on the sun planet.
Yeah. Well, before he can go back to Godhead, he has to cultivate devotion.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
And generally,
Maharaj.
just a minute. I'm not finished. Another distinction between the karma yoga and the path of devotion. The karma yogi thinks, I'm doing this, I'm giving this. But the devotee understands everything as Krishna's. The devotee doesn't think anything belongs to him. Although it's mentioned here that there's the Niskam Karma Yogi free from a sense of proprietorship. So, but there is that tendency among the Karma Yogi to think that I'm doing this for Krishna, I'm doing this for Krishna, I give this to Krishna. Whereas the devotee understands everything belongs to Krishna. All right? Yes, Prabhu has another question. You have a question, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, apologies for interrupting earlier. Maharaj, so, the planet in the middle and obviously 7 higher planetary systems. So you were mentioning that the sun planet is one of the heavenly planets. So I wanted to find out from what point does the heavenly planets begin? Is it from the sun planet, and is that the first higher planetary system above Earth?
Well, the sun is one of the higher planets. It's mentioned here that there's a path of illumination described like that you go up to the sun planet where further purification takes place. Then after going through the sun planet, then you can go out through the coverings of the universe into the spiritual sky. Please, can you turn off your microphones if you're having a lot of background noise there, please? So you go up through the sun, from the sun planet, then you have to go up through the different coverings of the universe. So this is a path by which the yogis generally go out of the spiritual world. So the sun has its own orbit, it's one of the heavenly planets, one of the higher planets, and it's convenient for the living entities who are going out of the material world that they go first to the sun planet for further purification, and then they go out through the coverings of the universe. Of course, there are many higher planets. We know there's a Bhuvarswar, so Swargaloka is there, and then above that, then you have then Mahaloka, Tapaloka, and Janaloka, and Satyaloka. These 4 higher planets are all there. We heard that there's the people who worship the Hiranyagarbha. They go up to Brahmaloka and they stay at or Satyaloka. They stay up there with Lord Brahma, and they may go back to Godhead with Brahma. But the other way is just to go up through the sun planet, and from the sun planet then you can go through the coverings of the universe. So this is one of the paths out of the material world. Okay, we'll go ahead. Here's the Hiranyagarbhas, the worshippers of Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha can mean Lord Brahma, but in this case it means Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Right? So perfect yogis, the worshippers of the Hiranyagarbha, verses 8 to 10. Worshippers of the Hiranyagarbha, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, do not approach the Lord directly in Vaikuntha. They remain in Brahmaloka until the final dissolution of the universe, and then may be transferred with Brahma to the spiritual sky. So we should understand, it's not every time that Brahma does go back to Godhead. Sometimes, usually he does, but if he still has material desires, he will enter into the body of Mahavishnu, and then when the creation takes birth again, he will again take birth, and he may become Brahma again. So it's not absolute that Brahma that all the Brahmas go back to Godhead. There are many Brahmas, as you know, many Brahmas, and they're not all able to go back to Godhead. They're not all pure enough to go. So then they enter into Mahavishnu, and then when the creation takes birth, then it takes place again. Then they also come out of Mahavishnu. So the worshippers of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, they have to go up to Brahmaloka, the topmost planet in the universe, and they have to wait there for the dissolution of the universe. That's the end of Brahma's life. Brahma, Brahma lives 100 years. And one day of Brahma, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharya Brahmano Vidu, that one day of Brahma is 1,000 ages, 1,000 Divya Yugas, 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas in one day of Brahma. And then there are 30 days in a month and 12 months in a year, and Brahma lives 100 years. So you can imagine how long you may have to be there in Brahmaloka before you go back to Godhead, before there's a dissolution of the universe. So it takes a long time. That's the point. Perfected yogis also attain Brahmaloka and are unable to directly enter Vaikuntha or merge in the Brahmajyoti. So perfected yogis, they can go up to Brahmaloka, but because they have no bhakti, they cannot enter into Vaikuntha. And they may simply have material desires. They simply want to enjoy their yoga perfections. And so then they will not even merge into the Brahmajyoti. They'll simply stay in the material world. And when the universe is annihilated, they will also enter into the body of Mahavishnu. So that happens, great yoga. Sometimes the 4 Kumaras, sometimes that happens to them. Since they remain in the material atmosphere, all these exalted souls risk taking birth again. So this is the problem. You take birth again. You don't solve the real problem of birth and death. You're having to take birth again in the material world. So the real mission of life is not achieved.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, sorry to interrupt. May I ask a small thing?
Okay.
Maharaj, you mentioned something about 4 Kumaras. I could not understand about 4 Kumaras. They did not go to the Vaikuntha?
Well, sometimes they don't go. The point is, even if you're Lord Brahma or you're one of the 4 Kumaras, if you don't have pure devotion, you don't go to Vaikuntha.
Yes, Maharaj. So 4 Kumaras, but we understood that they took the aroma of the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, and then they became devotees. So that means
that was one time.
Okay, that was one time.
But there are other. there's other 4 Kumars in every different place, different universities in different places.
Okay, like Brahma, different Brahma.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Okay, could someone read this for me? What does it say? Contrasting what?
Shall I read, Maharaj?
Okay.
Contrasting bhakti with other prescribed Vedic paths, after describing the followers of different spiritual paths and the results they achieve, Kapil advises his mother, "Therefore, my dear mother, by devotional service, take direct shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart."
All right, so we heard from Lord Kapila, he described about the Sakama Karma Yogi and then the Niskam Karma Yogi. And we heard about some of the mystic yogis and so on, that they didn't solve the problem of birth and death because they lacked devotion. So Lord Kapila is instructing his mother Devahuti that you have to take to devotional service. That is the real solution. And how to do devotional service? Take shelter of the super soul who is seated in everyone's heart, who is, of course, the super soul. He's the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so that was described. You know, we spoke earlier about Astanga Yoga and meditation on the super soul, which is all part of the Sankhya Yoga system. Okay. Transcendental loving relationships. From text 11, purport, Lord Kapila advised his mother that she did not need any indirect process. Indirect processes means like, you know, you do some karma yoga, or then you come to jnana yoga, and then you may come to dhyana yoga, and then back, like the yoga ladder, going through the yoga ladder, or indirect processes, you know, worshipping demigods, and then coming to worship the Supreme Lord. So Lord Kapila told his mother, you don't need to do any indirect process. Why not? Because she was already situated in that direct process, because the Supreme Lord had taken birth as her son. Actually, she did not need any further instruction because she was already in the perfectional stage. Can you understand? Devahuti was already perfect. Why? Because she sees the Supreme Lord and she thinks of him as her son. Although he's actually the Supreme Lord, she's thinking Lord Kapila is her son. And so this was her loving relationship with the Lord. So this was her direct process. She's already a devotee. She doesn't need to do anything else. One who is a devotee who's doing devotional service, they're not lacking anything. They don't have to do anything else because it's already there within devotion. You've learned that before in Bhakti Shastri, that when you did the yoga ladder, you saw that one who's a devotee, or what does Krishna say at the end of the 6th chapter? Who remembers? What's that verse at the end of chapter 6 of all yogis?
The one who meditates on me in his heart always and worships me is the best of the yogis.
Yeah, do you know the Sanskrit?
Maybe Yoginam Apishar Vesham Mad Kateran Tarat Manam. Now I don't remember, sorry.
Shraddhavan?
Shraddhavan Bhajate Yomam Sam Yukta Tamamata.
Yes, right. Okay, you got it. Yes, the one who is the topmost yogi, he's already on that platform. He doesn't have to do any of the other things. It's already included within Bhakti Yoga. One who's a Bhakti Yogi, he's already a Karma Yogi, a Jnana Yogi, a Dhyana Yogi. All of these things are already there within. Okay, now we're going to hear a little bit from the Brihad Bhagavat Amrita. Any of you have read that book? What's the title? All paths lead to the same goal. Something like that.
Wishing to hear of, 1. The result of great devotion to Lord Gopikanta, and 2. The Lord's pastime place above Vaikuntha, and not fully understanding them in her heart, she asked Sri Pariksit.
By performing auspicious duties, householders with material desires can achieve the 3 worlds, and persons who have renounced their homes can reach the 4 worlds beyond those. However, when their enjoyment ends, all these persons return to this mundane earth. Only a select few of those who have reached the planets of Maharloka and other higher planets become liberated with Lord Rama.
Sanatana Goswami explains that the 3 worlds are Bhu, Bhuvaha, and Sva planets. Householders in those realms wish to enjoy the fruits of their work. Householders who have no material desires, by performing prescribed duties, may go to Maharloka or other higher planets, and when their hearts are pure, may become liberated. Persons who are not householders are Naishtika brahmacharis, vanaprasts, and sannyasis. The 4 realms they attain are Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. They who have material desires again take birth, but they who have no material desires and act only out of duty are liberated.
Some persons, after enjoying on Archir-loka and other planets, gradually attain liberation. Renounced souls devoted to transcendental knowledge quickly attain liberation. The Lord's devotees who have material desires may enjoy by fulfilling those desires, and when they become fully purified, they also attain the Lord's abode. Devotees having no material desires at once attain the blissful spiritual realm of Vaikuntha, which is difficult even for liberated souls to attain. Pure devotees living in Vaikuntha enjoy forever in varied ways the happiness of directly serving Sri Krishna's lotus feet. In comparison, the nectar of liberation appears insignificant. Some of those devotees are situated in knowledge, Jnana Bhaktas. Some are pure devotees, Shuddha Bhaktas. Some are devotees situated in love, Prema Bhaktas. Some are devotees situated in great love, Prema Pura Bhaktas. And some are overwhelmed by love, Prema Tora Bhaktas.
Sanatana Goswami explains that here 4.5 kinds of love are described, with the Jnana Bhaktas being the half. The devotion of Jnana Bhaktas is mixed with a desire for knowledge, not the pathetic liberation of the impersonalists, but the awareness of the glories of serving the Lord's lotus feet. Maharaj Bharat is an example of a Jnana Bhakta. The Sudha Bhaktas are devoted to the 9 processes of devotional service. Their devotion is not distracted by fruitive work, a desire for knowledge, or non-devotional renunciation. Maharaj Ambarish is an example of a Sudha Bhakta. The Prema Bhaktas want only to serve the Lord's lotus feet with love. Hanuman is an example of a Prema Bhakta. The Prema Para Bhaktas are the Lord's affectionate associates who, by the Lord's boundless mercy, are tied by the chains of affectionately gazing at the Lord with longings of love, friendship with the Lord, and close friendship where they joke with the Lord. The Pandavas are examples of prema para bhaktas. Love attained without love for the Lord. There are varying degrees of that love. Thus, the prema bhaktas are better than the Shuddha bhaktas. The prema para bhaktas are better than the prema para bhaktas.
Since the levels of these devotees vary, it seems unfitting the results they achieve be the same. Nonetheless, no one is considered better than anyone else in Vaikuntha. It follows that among devotees in Vaikuntha, there is equality, even to special Vaikuntha perfections, such as living near the Lord or attaining a form like his. A goal higher than Vaikuntha is each according to his own kind of love, and each attaining his own object of love. Everyone is happy, have all attained the highest happiness. I still wonder, however, what is the destination of they who are devoted to the Lord, who performs the Rasa Leela? My heart is not happy if others attain the same destination attained by loving devotees who chant the holy names and who, indifferent to all material goals, yearn to become Shivrata's maidservants. I cannot tolerate that others attain the same destination as Nanda and Yasoda and their associates.
Okay, so I hope that had aroused some interest in you, and you may like to read Brihad Bhagavatamrita yourself. As you see, this is from the first chapter, the second section, first chapter, verses 10 to 22, describing different devotees in the spiritual world. It's not all the same. There are different levels of devotees, different degrees of devotion, according to their mood. So, although they're all there in Vaikuntha, but they enjoy different relationships with the Lord.
Maharaj, may I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
Can you explain the last verse we just heard? He said, it was said, I cannot tolerate that others achieve the same destination as Nanda Maharaj.
Yeah, well, it's leading to the inquiry that there's another planet beyond the Vaikunthas, you see, that is Goloka Vrindavan. There's this very special place called Goloka Vrindavan where these very special devotees are who enjoy that particular rasa with Krishna. So
why does he say I cannot tolerate?
Well, she just thought it's not fair. That it doesn't seem just that there's people who have the desire for a higher relationship than what's there in Vaikuntha. So she wasn't aware of Goloka. So that's the point. So the Sanatana Goswami is writing like that in his book. He's describing that. You see, so he's introducing to us. And to the Uttara who was inquiring like that, it was Uttara who was inquiring from Maharaj Parikshit, and she was inquiring, it doesn't seem fair, that what about those devotees who attach to something higher?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes?
May I ask one thing, Maharaj, with your kind permission?
Well, you can ask.
Yeah, Maharaj, actually, like in this Kapila Siksha, these chapters, we are understanding that the material desires, they lead to bondage. And these material desires, like for name, fame, and like in Hindi, they say that love, puja, pratishtha, like name and fame. So, like these desires are there in the subtle body. So, though we have the knowledge, though we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, though we are understanding that these material desires are so dangerous that they can bring us back into the material world or maybe into the hellish regions. So then with this knowledge, why if I talk about myself, why I am not able to get rid of these unwanted material desires, Maharaj? I have the knowledge, but still I am struggling, and still I am not able to give up these desires for name and fame and respect.
No, you have to follow the process more, right? It's going to take some time. You have to take up the process with increased enthusiasm. And if you desire to actually get rid of them, then you can. The process is there. You've got the perfect process to get rid of these desires. You just have to follow. And gradually you will. We are talking about anartha nivritti, right? You want to get rid of these desires, these subtle desires. This is all anartha nivritti. So you have to do it through the medium of devotional service. So by absorption in devotional service, gradually you'll get rid of these desires, and these desires will become less and less as you continue.
Yes, Maharaj, but sometimes what happens if we are following the process of devotional service for, let us say, for a long period of time, and still we are not able to find much improvement in the level of the desires, and sometimes it is disheartening, and like we cannot measure our level, like to what degree the desire has been reduced. The desire is still existing, and still we are following the process of devotional service sincerely and enthusiastically and consistently, but the result seems to be little far away, so that sometimes it spoils the motivation level. So,
well, you have to just, you can't be so attached to the results, you see. You have to be humble. You have to tolerate. You have to understand that we've been in the material world a very long time. And you say we're practicing. How long are you practicing? How long have you been in the material world? We've had many, many births in the material world. So our conditioning goes very deep. And so we should regret. We should lament. But we should feel very fortunate that we're on the right path. Now we just have to continue. We just have to keep going. Hold tightly to the lotus feet of Krishna and spiritual teachers. And gradually, one day you'll go back to Godhead. Gradually it will happen. Don't think it's going to happen overnight. It's not just so quick that, oh, take up chanting Hare Krishna and it will all happen. It's going to take time. We've been in the material world a very long time. So you have to be patient.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, we'll go ahead. Here's Srila Prabhupada. Would somebody like to read this for me, please? What's the heading?
The process of pleasing Krishna.
Okay, go ahead.
Any language, you should submit and you should feel that I am worthless. My Guru Maharaja has given this chance to serve Krishna, to offer Krishna. My Lord, I am worthless. I have no capacity to serve you. But on the order of my Guru Maharaj, I am trying to serve you. Please do not take any offense. Accept whatever I can do. That's all. That is my request. That mantra is sufficient. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. Krishna never said that. One who offers me with Sanskrit mantra.
Oh, sorry, wait. Go ahead.
Yome Bhaktya Prayachati. Real thing is bhakti, feeling how to serve Krishna, how to please him. That is wanted. Not to see that you are a very good scholar in speaking in Sanskrit or English or that. That is not. Always feel that I am worthless, but I have been, by the grace of my Guru Maharaj, I have been given the chance. So kindly accept whatever little service I can give. I am offensive, so kindly excuse me. In this way, be humble, meek, and offer your feeling, and Krishna will be satisfied.
Yes, I think that's very good. I think you should remember this.
Maharaj, may I request, may I see the previous slide once again, because that was, I think, very relevant to my question. I think the slide came immediately, what you already answered, that you said that we have to be very, very humble, because I do not have any capacity to serve. It is only by the mercy of the spiritual teachers that we can try to serve Krishna.
Yes, right. Okay, so there's the slide. Yeah, you're right. Humility is very important, and we should feel ourselves unqualified and worthless, but at the same time we should feel very fortunate. We're trying to serve Guru and Krishna. I am worthless. By the grace of my Guru Maharaj, I've been given the chance. So kindly, whatever little service I can give, please accept. I'm offensive. Kindly excuse me. Be humble, meek. Offer your feelings. Krishna will be pleased. All right? Go ahead. What's the title?
Shall I read, Maharaj, or some other devotee will like to read?
Go ahead, you can read.
Okay. Without bhakti, no one can enter the spiritual sky. All those who maintain self-interest are forced to come back to the material world.
Yes, self-interest. We were speaking about even Lord Brahma, the four Kumaras. If they're self-interested, they come back. Keep reading.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah, without bhakti, no one can enter the spiritual sky. My dear mother, someone may worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a special self-interest. But even demigods such as Lord Brahma, great sages such as Sanat Kumar and great munis such as Marichi have to come back to the material world again at the time of creation. When the interaction of the three modes of material nature begins, Brahma, who is the creator of this cosmic manifestation and who is full of Vedic knowledge, and the great sages, who are the authors of the spiritual path and the yoga system, come back under the influence of the time factor. They are liberated by their non-fruitive activities and they attain the first incarnation of the Purusha, but at the time of creation, they come back in exactly the same forms and positions as they had previously.
Yes. So this is being described here, you see. Great sages, even demigods like Lord Brahma, sages like the four Kumaras, and munis like Marichi, they may come back to the material world. They enter into the Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is the first incarnation of the Purusha. And they stay in the body of Mahavishnu. They stay in the subtle form. In the subtle form, they're in the avyakta stage, and they remain in the body of Mahavishnu, but then when the creation takes place, then they come out, they take birth, and they will take that position again. Okay, yes?
Maharaj, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Where we can characterize a devotee which is performing devotional service, but he want to please himself by the devotional service before the Lord. Like, for example, we shall go to the temple on programs to glorify the Lord like this. But devotee, for example, choose that, okay, I will go for these regular programs, but I will go just for programs which I organize. For example, I organize some kirtans for devotees, so I will go only on these programs. But the other programs, I don't care doing all this. So I just how we can characterize such kind of mentality that that we want to enjoy the.
Well, we have to consider what are they doing when they don't go to the program. There are people who don't go to the program, but they're very busy with other engagements.
Yes, but I mean, not that kind of devotees. But especially when you just choose, that I like that kind of devotional service, so I will do this, but other devotional service I will not do, I was thinking in how we can characterize, that kind of mood.
Yes, well, it's very fruitive. You know, it's not very good, is it? You know, thinking, you know, like this. We should, of course, we should see devotional service absolute. Of course, at the same time, we have to recognize everyone has their particular ability, particular nature. But for everyone, there's hearing and chanting. No, hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna, that's for everyone. We can't say, you know, oh, I don't like to hear, or I don't like to chant. Everybody has to do that. You may not like cooking, you may not like kirtan, okay, but, you know, I mean, there has to be some kirtan. You have to get some taste for kirtan, the chanting of the holy name. And the one devotee said to Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, I don't like to go to class. He said, I know everything what they're saying. He said, I know everything they're saying. I don't learn anything new. So then Prabhupada said to him, they said, then you should give class. He said, if you know everything they're saying, why don't you give the class? So, like that, you know. Prabhupada definitely wanted us to go to the program. But we have to understand also, sometimes there's different programs going on. And nowadays we do have also Wi-Fi, so you can be in the house, you can be taking part in the program. You may not be in the temple room, but you can be attending the program in your house with the Wi-Fi connection. Right?
Thank you.
So we're tolerant about these things, you know, and we try to, you know, don't worry so much about others, just try to be a good example yourself. That's a good thing, you know, if you can go to the program, that's very nice. And don't worry too much about others. They're not coming to the program, it's their problem. But example, that's the best way to teach everyone. If we get people to be a good example for others, very nice. Okay, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on these verses. In the Gita, the Lord says, Mam eva ye prapadyante mayami tam taranti te. Right? Evihiyesha gunamayi mama maya durajaya. Mam eva ye prapadyante maya. Right? Those who surrender to me cross over my maya. Bhagavad Gita 4:11. From this, it is understood that even Brahma does not get liberation if he does not have bhakti. So, you want to surrender? You want to get liberation? We have to have the qualification. Qualification is devotee. We surrender to Krishna. If we surrender to Krishna, then we can cross over the Maya. But if we have not got devotion, then we won't be able to get through. What has been described here are Brahma, sages, yogis, jnanis, and kumaras, who are devoid of bhakti in some particular universe. The Brahmas and sages of all other universes have bhakti, and thus attain liberation, and prema bhakti with dasya and other relationships according to their degree of bhakti. Alright, so I was speaking about this, that we have to when we speak about Brahma, the four Kumaras and like that, we have to understand that there's many of them in all the different universes. There's many universes. And so, some of them don't have bhakti. They don't have bhakti, they don't get to go back to Godhead if they're without bhakti.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, in the previous slide, there was one thing about surrender. May I ask Maharaj?
Yes?
I'm sorry Maharaj, I'm having a lot of queries. I'm really feeling very sorry that I am bothering too much actually. But I have some basic questions like when we are basically there are six symptoms of surrender that we understand that Lord is our supreme protector. But when there is a problem in the life we feel that we cannot solve, then I feel that okay, if Lord is the supreme protector, then why is he not giving the protection? So how to understand that we have to surrender by having in our consciousness that Lord is our supreme protector. And when some problem comes which we cannot solve with our intelligence or mind, then we feel that God is not giving any protection. So God is the supreme protector in every stage of life.
Yes, well, we have to understand that protection is there, but it's not that God is just there as your order, as your servant. You know, the protection is there. The protection is that He's in our heart as the super soul. Then He's giving us knowledge and remembrance and forgetfulness. He's helping us to come to Him. He's guiding us. He's telling us what we need to do. It's not that He's going to come, you know, all right, you're Prahlad Maharaj and the Lord's going to come as Nrsingadev and kill the demon who's giving you trouble. You know, it doesn't mean like that every time the Lord will come and kill the demon who's troubling you. But protection means that He's there to help you to stay away from Maya. He's helping you, He's helping us, He's guiding us to surrender, to come closer to Krishna, to move towards Krishna, and not to move to Maya. So that's the protection. Definitely, we can feel the protection of Krishna when we surrender to Him, when we take the shelter of Krishna. When we take the shelter of Krishna, then we will feel His protection. When we chant the holy name, and when we fix our mind on Krishna, we will feel the difference. And we can understand how He's taking care of us and helping us. But He does say, as you surrender to me, I reward you accordingly. So it depends on the quality of our surrender. The devotee is reluctant to take service from Krishna. Not that every day we pray to Krishna, oh protect me, oh Krishna, you have to do this for me. No. Sometimes a devotee is very reluctant to approach Krishna for service. We want to give service to Krishna because we see Krishna's taken so much care of us. He's been helping us so much. So a devotee is very reluctant to approach Krishna for service. And it has to be a really life-threatening situation before we would even think to call out to Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, we'll go ahead. So, yes, somebody read. What does it say, Prabhu? 16 to what?
16 to 21.
Go ahead.
Lord Kapila criticizes Sakama karma. After describing those who are dedicated to Nivarta karma in 5 to 7, Kapila advises to surrender to the Lord in 3:22 and 21. After describing those dedicated to Pravarta karma, the Lord again advises to just worship the Supreme Lord with devotion.
Okay. So Kapila advised to surrender to the Lord in text 21. So those dedicated to pravrita karma, the Lord again advises, just worship the Lord with devotion. I'm going to do The Nivrita karma, they're different people. This is Pavrita karma. They're dedicated to Pavrita karma. So just worship the Lord with devotion. The Nivrita karma people, they're just don't do this, don't get that, and they're more avoiding things. They just want to get out from the material world. They do things as a sense of duty only. So Pavrita karma is definitely better. Just worship the Lord with devotion. Just surrender to Him. Yes? Someone read?
22 to 26, conclusion of Lord Kapila's teachings. By bhakti goals of other paths are also achieved. 22-23, Jnana and Vairagya quickly achieved by practice of bhakti. 24-25, symptoms of a devotee. 26-1, Bhagavan is perceived differently through different processing.
All right, so this is some conclusion of Lord Kapila's teachings, right? If we do devotional service, then all the other paths, the results of all the other paths are also there. And we remember there's a famous verse there from the first canto, second chapter, that simply by doing devotional service, you automatically develop Gyan and Vairag. Gyan, spiritual knowledge, and Vairag, detachment from whatever is not in relation to devotional service. So Gyan and Vairag follow Bhakti. And then 24 and 25, the symptoms of a devotee, the different good qualities of a devotee will develop. By doing bhakti, the devotee will naturally develop all of these qualities without even thinking about it. Just by engaging in the process of devotional service, the different qualities develop. Then text 26, one Bhagavan is perceived differently through different processes. There's one Supreme Lord, but someone perceives Him as the Brahman, someone perceives Him as Paramatma, and someone as Bhagavan. We'll see the example. The conclusion of Kapila's teachings, verses 22 to 26. This is one of the concluding verses from Kapila's teachings. My dear mother, I therefore advise that you take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for His lotus feet are worth worshipping. Accept this with all devotion and love, for thus you can be situated in transcendental devotional service. So Lord Kapila, again advising his mother, just do devotional service. The lotus feet of the Lord. Take shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. And you'll get all the results. Text 23. And you can see very similar to the word from the verse from the first canto, second chapter. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jnana Yat Suvairagyam Jnanam Yat Brahma Darshanam. Little change at the end. Engagement in Krishna consciousness and application of devotional service unto Krishna make it possible to advance in knowledge and detachment, as well as in self-realization. So if we're engaged in Krishna consciousness, doing our hearing and chanting, practicing all the principles of devotional service, then certainly we'll be cultivating our knowledge and detachment, and self-realization will also result. But remember, the goal is none of these things. The goal is to develop love for Krishna. We want to develop love for Krishna. We don't just want knowledge and detachment. We don't just want self-realization. We want to develop a love for Krishna. We want to become deeply attached to Lord Krishna. That is the goal. Text 24. The exalted devotee's mind becomes equipoised in sensory activities, and he is transcendental to that which is agreeable and not agreeable. Some people are like that. Oh, this is good, this is not good. Oh, I like that, I don't like this. Some agreeable, not agreeable. That's a material platform. That's the platform of the mind. E bala, e manda, e sabram. We're thinking this is good, this is bad. This is all the business of the mind. It's all illusion. So we have to transcend that. We have to transcend that. And the devotee devotee means he's transcendental, he's transcendentally situated. He's not disturbed by sensory activities. He may use his senses, but he uses his senses simply for devotional service. We don't stop the senses like the jnanis and the yogis. We use our senses in the service of Krishna, not anything else. Then text 25, because of his transcendental intelligence, the pure devotee is equipoised in his vision and sees himself to be uncontaminated by matter. He does not see anything as superior or inferior, and he feels himself elevated to the transcendental platform of being equal in qualities with the Supreme Person. All right, so devotee, the pure devotee is being described, that he has transcendental intelligence. And so, because of his transcendental intelligence, he is equipoised in his vision, how we see everything. How are we seeing it? If we're not equipoised, we will see, oh, I like this, I don't like that. Oh, this is good, this is no good. Oh, yeah, I want that, I don't want this. The equipoised. So he's controlling his mind, and with his vision, he's careful not to judge and not to make criticisms of others. But he wants to see everything in the proper way. How to see? We talk about Shastra Chaksus. We should see everything through the eyes of the scripture. See everything with spiritual vision. Don't just depend on our own eyes to see things, but see through the eyes of the scripture. And then it says also, sees himself to be uncontaminated by matter. Although we may have a material body, we don't think we're the body. We're living in the body, and we're all pure souls. So that the pure devotee understands, I'm a soul, I'm a pure soul, uncontaminated by matter. He does not see anything as superior or inferior. Some people on the bodily concept of life, they're thinking, oh, I'm high class, they're low class, oh, this person has no class. They make distinction. They're not seeing in the proper way. So they make judgments based on their material vision. So that's not proper. Now he feels himself elevated to the transcendental platform of being equal in qualities with the Supreme Person. Yeah, we're one in quality, but different in quantity. We may have the qualities of the Supreme Person, but not in the same quantity. So qualitatively one, but not quantitatively. And that way we keep our individuality. We're tiny sparks and the Lord is the fire. And then text 26, the personality of Godhead alone is complete transcendental knowledge, but according to the different processes of understanding, he appears differently, either as impersonal Brahman, as Paramatma, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or as the Purusha avatar. So, different processes will reveal the Lord in different ways. If someone takes to the impersonal process, the process of Gyan, speculative knowledge, they will conclude the Lord is the impersonal Brahman. And if somebody is following Astanga Yoga, they will conclude that the Lord is the Paramatma. But for the devotee of the Lord, they can understand the Lord as Swayam Bhagavan. Or the Purusha avatars. We heard about people who worship the Hiranyagarbha like that. So some people worship the Mahapurush or the Purusha avatar. These are also devotees, of course. They have devotion, but they're not necessarily going to be Krishna bhaktas. They may be worshipping Vishnu as the Supreme. So,
Maharaj?
Yes?
Maharaj, you mentioned about Jnanis and Yogis. So Yogis are more closer to Bhagwan than compared to Jnanis. Like they also merge in the Brahmjyoti, but they are more nearer to Bhagwan. Is this correct, Maharaj?
Why? I don't quite follow what you're saying. The yogis are closer to Bhagavan?
Yeah, yogis, like since they are having the realization of Paramatma, but the destination, like the destination of Jnanis and Yogis is both Brahmjyoti. But in Brahmjyoti also, he may be the Jnani may be on the external side of Bhagwan realization, but Yogi may be little closer to the Bhagwan realization side.
It depends. We have to see, there are different kinds of yogis. Some yogis, they simply want the Astasiddhis. They simply want material perfection. You have to consider what is their realization, how much they've understood the nature of the soul. Have they actually understood that there's a super soul? Sometimes they think we are the super soul. They think, the yogis often think there's only one soul. They don't understand that there is also the super soul. And they think when they're meditating on the super soul that they are the super soul.
Yes, Maharaj. So basically based on their consciousness, they may be wanting siddhis or personal benefits, then again they may fall behind.
They have material desires, that's the point. They have material desires. Bhukti mukti siddhikami sakale ashanta. Krishna bhakti niskam sa esha shanta. Right? The Jnanis, they want liberation, mukti, and the yogis, they want siddhis, and the karmi, he wants sense gratification. So bhukti mukti siddhikami sakale ashanta. None of them are peaceful. Whether they're nearer or not, understand they're not peaceful.
Yes, Maharaj.
That's the main point.
Yes, Maharaj.
They haven't got complete realization of the Supreme Lord.
Thank you, Maharaj.
All right, then verses 27 to 36, we get a summary of Lord Kapila's teachings on chapters 25 to 29. Attaining Bhagavan realization is the ultimate goal of all Vedic practices. So it doesn't matter what process you're following, the ultimate goal is to realize Bhagavan. So this is the conclusion of Lord Kapila's teaching. We want to understand that properly, that these Jnanis and Yogis and Karmis and whatever process they're following, that they should go on to realize the Bhagavan feature. So Here you can see the review of what we've been covering in this Kapila Siksha. Chapters 20 to 24, you heard about Devahuti and Kadama and the appearance of Lord Kapila. And then Lord Kapila's teaching actually began in chapter 25, where he spoke about bhakti, essentially bhakti. And then chapter 26 was on Gyan, and 27 was about the Jnani, applying that knowledge and how he can achieve liberation. Chapter 28, we heard about the Astanga Yoga, and then 29, we heard about 4 different kinds of bhakti. That there was bhakti in the gunas, and there was also pure bhakti. So 4 different kinds of bhakti. And then we went, okay. So, recapping, Astanga, Jnana, and Bhakti. From verses 27 to 36. First of all, detachment from matter is the common ground for all transcendentalists. So whether one is a personalist or impersonalist, whether one is a yogi or a jnani or whatever, it doesn't matter, that they all have to show this detachment from matter. It's a primary consideration for achieving the transcendental platform. If one is going to come to the transcendental platform, one has to be detached from matter. We have to give up that attachment to the material. So that's an important point in all the different processes. If we are keeping attachment, then we cannot progress. We have to let go of the material in order to actually come to the transcendental platform. And then, by mental speculation, devoid of devotion, one cannot come to a positive understanding of the Supreme. So mental speculation, that is the ascending process of knowledge. Trying to pull oneself up, trying to understand the Lord by the power of our own mind and senses. Then it will be very difficult and it will be very troublesome to make advancement. The path of devotion is a descending process. The knowledge comes down. But mental speculation, we're trying to pull ourselves up. You know, if you ever climb a rope, if you go rope climbing, it's much easier to come down than it is to go up. You have to work hard to pull yourself up. It's quite easy to come down. And so similarly, to try to understand the Supreme by our own efforts is very difficult. Very, very difficult. Vedeshu durlabham. Right? To understand everything by the Vedas and like that, then very difficult, very rare. Or by Gyan, we say Gyan, Bahunam Gyanmanamante Gyanavam Mam Pratpajante. After many births and deaths, when one is actually in knowledge, then he surrenders to me. Such a soul is very rare. So that's the process of Gyan. Gyan means mental speculation. So you make advancement very slowly, many births, and very rare to come to perfection. But by devotion, it's very easy. The path of devotion is the positive way to understand the Supreme. Third point, directly or indirectly, one should come to the same goal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So directly, we give Devahuti as the example, directly. That just by devotion, her devotion for Lord Kapila, she has devotion. She doesn't need to do anything else. She's already got devotion for Lord Kapila. She doesn't have to worry about how to get devotion. Indirectly, then we're taking up different paths. Maybe worshipping demigods, maybe studying the Vedas, maybe the impersonal path, coming to the impersonal Brahman, and then going on to Paramatma, and then Bhagavan, like that, indirectly. indirectly, going up to Brahmaloka, waiting in Brahmaloka for the end of Brahma's life, and then going back to Godhead. That's indirectly. But directly, can immediately go back to Godhead. So it's the same goal. The goal is the personality of Godhead. Only by devotion one can understand the absolute truth, just as only by the tongue one can experience the taste of milk. This is a very nice example to be understood. Just like the taste of milk can be perceived by the tongue. You know, milk, it has its own smell, it has its own touch, it has its own appearance, but the way you can actually tell if it's really milk is with the tongue. So similarly, only by devotion can we actually understand the absolute truth. To know the truth in full, it's only by devotion. So we give this, Lord Kapila gives this example, just like the tongue is necessary to know the taste of milk. You want to know the taste of milk, you have to use the tongue. You can't taste with anything else. You can't taste with the skin. You can't taste with your nose. So it's a special taste which is only perceived by the tongue. 27. Detachment from, okay, we had that, right? The common ground for all transcendentalists. Then 28 to 30. The Lord is the source of everything. Everything comes from Krishna or Lord Kapila. It's all from him. There's nothing separate from him. That's also stated, of course, from the Bhagavad Gita. And the same thing is here in Kapila Siksha. Text 31. Thus I have explained to you about Gyan, realization of Brahman, by which one understands the truth about Prakriti and Purush. So we had that in chapter 26 about Gyan. We went through all the different elements about the Prakriti, how they're all manifested, and we heard about the Purusha. Ultimately there's one Purush, the one Purush is Krishna, but we're also tiny Purushas, we're also trying to enjoy. So, realization of Brahman. When we understand Brahman, we will know about the difference between matter and spirit. Matter is Prakriti, and Brahman is Purusha. So, we want to understand properly what is matter and what is spirit, and who is the controller of both of these things. This is Gyan. All right, you can see here, what's the title? Various what? To realize Bhagavan? Various?
Arts. Yes.
Various arts.
But
Paths. Various paths.
I can't hear what you're saying, Prabhu. It's not clear at all.
various path.
Various paths. Various paths by which to realize Bhagavan. All right, so there's Krishna in the center, and you can see the different paths. So one path is by the Veda. You study the Vedas, you can know Krishna. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the author, I am compiler of the Vedas. Okay, so somebody else do yajna. The goal of yajna is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Yajna vai Vishnu. Yajna is meant for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu means Lord Krishna. And Varna, following properly the different duties of our Varna, that is also pleasing to Lord Krishna. Or ashram. We have our different ashrams, executing our duties. According to Varna and ashram, will also be very pleasing to Krishna and help us to advance. And then Gyan, from the Bhagavad Gita, one who is actually in knowledge will surrender to Krishna, Vasudeva. So the goal of Gyan is to come to Krishna. And then Yoga, we quoted, the best yogi, the topmost yogi, is the one who is engaged in devotional service, who thinks of me within himself. So the topmost yogi, the Yogi Uttama, he is a devotee of Krishna. And tapas, tapasya, austerity, one will do austerity for the pleasure of Krishna. In the 5th chapter, text number 29, we have the peace formula. Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Bhoktaram yagna tapasa. Right? The purpose of all yoga, of all austerities, is for the pleasure of Krishna. So that's tapas. And then bhakti. Bhakti is also meant, of course, that's meant for Krishna. By devotion, Krishna said, only by devotion am I to be known. Only by devotion am I to be understood. And the goal of that devotion is to come to prema. And there you see prema also. Prema punarto mahan. Develop love. Love for who? We want to develop love for Krishna. So all of these different processes help us to realize something, to realize Bhagwan, realize Lord Sri Krishna. Many different processes, but they're all meant to lead us to Krishna. Krishna is a prayojana, right? There's Sambandha, Abhidaya, and Prayojana. The Prayojana meaning the goal of all the scriptures. And this famous verse from the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, right? Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Maka, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriya, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva param Tapa, Vasudeva paro Dharmo, Vasudeva para Gati. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please Him. Yoga is for realizing Him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by Him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know Him. Religion or dharma is rendering loving service unto Him. He is the supreme goal of life. So just to support Lord Kapila's teachings, that Krishna is a prayojana. Vasudeva is the purport of the Vedas. Vasudeva is the object of all sacrifices. Yoga, Varnashram, knowledge, austerities are all dependent on Vasudeva. Bhakti is dependent on Vasudeva. Prem and liberation are dependent on Vasudeva. And this is in relation to the example of milk, right? A single object is appreciated differently by different senses due to its having different qualities. Similarly, the personality of Godhead is one, but according to different scriptural injunctions, He appears to be different. So different ways by which we can visualize God. Just like we gave the example about milk, you know, milk has its own smell. Somebody just relies on the smell. All right, they can distinguish what is this thing. Someone else uses their eyes. Someone else uses their hands, the sense of touch. So different senses will perceive objects in different ways. In the same way, we can understand God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in different ways, according to different scriptural injunctions. We can understand the Lord in different ways, just like you can understand the Lord. If we see the universal form, then we'll understand the Lord in that particular way. We will think of the Lord as just simply being a form from the universe of all the material elements. And we won't understand the Lord has a transcendental form. And somebody else is a yogi. He's meditating on the super soul. So he simply knows that God, that Lord is in the heart of everyone. And somebody else is a jnani. So he simply knows the impersonal aspect. He simply knows only the oneness of the Brahman. And he thinks ultimately everything has no form. And God is also without form. Of course, God is also without form, but he also has a form. He's both, he's everything. Prabhupada writes in the Sri Ishopanishad that God is everything within our experience and beyond it as well. So, like that, here you can see the example, the milk, and how it's perceived differently. Milk has its particular smell and taste and looks particular way, and each of the senses perceive it in a different way. You see the 5 senses. And so, what is it? When you use the tongue, then you know, oh, this is milk, yeah. But without using the tongue, you wouldn't know. By the eye, milk is perceived to be white. Well, there are many things which are white. And by the tongue, it is perceived as sweet. By touch, it is cool. By the nose, it is perceived as fragrant. By the ear, it is defined as milk. One by one, each perceivable quality is perceived by its particular sense and not by other senses. So each of the senses, they understand the milk in its particular way, according to that sense. Just like with the tongue, you're going to understand the taste. With the nose, you're going to understand the smell or the aroma. Each of the senses have a particular way in which it works. It is realized as a possessor of a certain quality by that particular sense, and not as milk itself. But it is perceived by the king of senses, the mind, as something possessing all the qualities. So this is a philosophical presentation of the Sankhya philosophy. A possessor of a certain quality by that particular sense, but not as milk itself. Just that, we said, well, many things are white. It has a particular touch. No, okay, but there are other things also touch like that. But the mind understands everything, takes all the qualities. Remember we gave the example about the blind man massaging the elephant? So each of the blind men have their own experience, but they're only describing a part of the elephant. Someone is massaging the leg of the elephant. He said it's like a tree. Someone's massaging, he's got the tail of the elephant. He said, oh, it's like a brush. And someone has got the ear of the elephant, so it's like a big fan. Someone's at the side of the elephant, said, no, it's like a wall. So they're describing different parts, but you have to put the whole thing together, and then you get what is actually the elephant. You can't know the elephant just by one part, by one limb of the elephant. You have to see the whole body. So similarly, all the qualities have to be understood. Then you can actually know what is being described. So one portion of the Lord is perceived by karma. And what portion is that? That is Swarg, the heavenly planets. One portion, the idea of Swarg. And one portion may be perceived by the Jnani. That would be Brahman, or the Atma. So they have their different realizations. But Bhagavan, the object of Prem, who includes all the other forms, who gives all the results, that is realized by the Bhakta, by Bhakti only. Krishna says, only by devotion am I to be understood. Bhaktya mama bijanati yavam yaschasmin tanvata. Only by devotion, right? So here you see Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Different realizations. Somebody knows the Lord as Brahman, somebody's Paramatma realized, but the devotees know Bhagavan. And one who knows Bhagavan, they also know, they have also knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. One who is a bhakti yogi, he is also a karma yogi, a jnana yogi, a dhyana yogi. They're all there within bhakti. Just like Lord Sri Krishna, all of his different incarnations, they're all there within the original personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan. Eche samsakala pumsa, Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. Right? All of these different incarnations of the Lord, you can see Lord Rama, Lord Kapila, Lord Parasuram, Dattatreya, Varaha, they're all there. They're all there within the original Swayam Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Jai. Krishna Bhagavan ki. You recognize? Who is this? Which deity is this?
Shishidhara.
Radha Madhav.
Yes.
Vasanta Panchami.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yellow. Yeah, good. I don't know, is that Vasant Panchami? When the Vasant Panchami we had yellow garlands. They don't have yellow garland on there. I don't think it could be Vasant Panchami. The dress is yellow, but the garlands are not yellow. On Vasant Panchami, the deities had all yellow garlands. It was all yellow flowers. The whole thing was yellow. Okay, going ahead. Kala and Samsa, 37. My dear mother, I've explained to you the process of devotional service and its identity in 4 different social divisions. I've explained to you as well how eternal time is chasing the living entities, although it is imperceptible to them. So she wanted to know about time. Lord Kapila said, it's chasing the living entities, but it's imperceptible. We don't see time, right? We don't see the time moving. Although the sun is rising and setting every day, another day lost, and we're nearer death. But we don't see the duration of life as being reduced every moment. And so Lord Kapila explained this. Text 38, there are varieties of material existence for the living entity according to the work he performs in ignorance or forgetfulness of his real identity. My dear mother, if anyone enters into that forgetfulness, he is unable to understand where his movements will end. So this is ignorance. We forget our identity. And then the result is take birth again and again. So, chapter 30, we heard about Tamagun, working hard, trying to get money and everything, and then dying a horrible death and taken by Yamaraj to Yamaloka. Then text 31, we heard about Tamas and Rajas, passion and ignorance. We heard about the child in the womb and offering prayers, but then when they come out of the womb, then they forget and they become enamored by the material nature, but so much suffering, struggling for enjoyment. trying to get things they can't get. And now today, chapter 32, we're hearing about passion and goodness. Trying to enjoy the results of our worship. And we have one more chapter to do. We have to do chapter 33, Devahuti's Bhakti, which we will hear tomorrow. So final section, who is eligible to receive these instructions? Lord Kapila describes, this instruction is not meant for the envious, for the agnostics, or for persons who are unclean in their behavior, nor is it for hypocrites or for persons who are proud of material possessions. It is not to be instructed to persons who are too greedy and too attached to family life, nor to persons who are non-devotees and who are envious of the devotees and of the personality of Godhead. Text 41, instruction should be given to the faithful devotee who is respectful to the spiritual master, non-envious, friendly to all kinds of living entities, and eager to render service with faith and sincerity. This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment from that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. So this is Lord Kapila's instructions on who should be given and who should not be given this knowledge of Sankhya. And you can see, quite similar, Bhagavad Gita. And then finally we have the Phala Shruti. This is the fruit, the result. If you follow anyone who once meditates upon me with faith and perfection, or faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. So that's the blessings we get from studying Kapila Siksha. If we have faith and affection, we hear and chant about Lord Kapila, then surely we go back home, back to Godhead. Okay, 33 we'll go on to tomorrow. Any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhu.
Maharaj, if you look at different situations in this material world, currently Afghanistan, Russia, Ukraine tensions, we know the only solution in the world is to preach Krishna consciousness and for people to take up Krishna consciousness. And whatever is unfolding is obviously due to their karma. But we spoke earlier about Krishna, seeking Krishna's protection. So I want to find out, as a pure devotee, or this is in relation to a pure devotee, when he sees the world, material world, going through these type of situations, can one pray to the Lord to give them his protection and to give them devotion?
What's it? I couldn't hear it clearly, Prabhu. One what? One pray?
Maharaj, from what point must I repeat?
Well, the last part, just the last part.
Yes, I was speaking in relation to a pure devotee. He's on the transcendental platform. But is it pure devotional service that he can pray to the Lord to give those living entities his protection and devotion? Because, obviously one can't travel there due to different circumstances, being dangerous, for example, or unsafe. But can one pray to the Lord to give those living entities his protection and devotion to him?
Oh yes, definitely we can pray like that. I mean, we know Vasudeva Datta was very much appreciated by Lord Chaitanya. That Vasudeva Datta wanted to take the sinful reactions for all the people and let them all go back to Godhead And he said, I will stay here and suffer for them. So Lord Chaitanya was so pleased, he appreciated so much, and he declared that Vasudev Datta was in the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. So he had the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. He was thinking about others. He wasn't thinking about his own deliverance. That's very nice. But of course, when it comes to actually preaching, for preaching work, we do make distinction. You know, we have to make distinction. Who is actually able to, who is actually worthy to receive this knowledge? And sometimes, you know, you try to preach to people, they simply become more angry or they become more offensive. So that's not good. We don't want them to commit offenses because that will really damage their spiritual progress. So we have to be cautious. We do have to discriminate about who we give this knowledge to. You know, it's one thing to give causeless mercy to people. Lord Krishna can do that. He can give causeless mercy. He can take someone like Putana and he can take her back to Godhead. Or he can take, you know, Pundraka and he can take him to Vaikuntha and give him a four-arm form because he's so attracted to the four-arm form. He wants to... So Krishna can do that, but we're not on Krishna's level. At the same time, we can feel compassion for the fallen souls, and we're encouraged to feel that compassion and to think about delivering them. And we do. Now, of course, we have programs, so many welfare programs, distributing prasadam, giving the holy name. People don't want us out there. People often don't want us out there. They don't like that we're out there chanting or giving out food and so on. But we do it anyway. Right? So we have to, you know, at the same time we have to be a little sensitive to a situation when it comes to actually giving spiritual knowledge, to instruct the glories of the holy name to faithless persons is one of the offenses in chanting the holy name. So that's something which we have to be conscious about.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Yes?
Maharaj, may I ask one question?
Please do, Prabhu.
Yes, Maharaj, actually, suppose if there is some problem in the mind which is blocking the flow of devotional service, then how should we pray to the Lord? I mean, what is the effective prayer for the Lord that if there is some problem and that is affecting the mind and mind is not getting engaged in the devotional service like it was earlier before the coming of the problem? So how should we pray? Because you also advise that we should not take service from Krishna, we should do service for Krishna. But sometimes the mental situation is like that it is having some like blockade, some hurdle is coming in execution of devotional service.
Well, we have full faith in the holy name, chanting the holy name, particularly the Maha Mantra. You know, Prabhupada certainly wanted us to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. He didn't worry so much about other mantras. He wanted the Hare Krishna mantra. He propagated the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And if we simply take shelter of the Hare Krishna mantra, that will actually, it can solve all the problems. That is the panacea for all mental problems. The loud chanting of the holy name, the Maha Mantra, loud chanting will help us to overcome the obstacles of the mind.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
So we have to have that faith in the chanting of the holy names. You know, this is what Prabhupada chanted. Lord Chaitanya also propagated the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. And so, yes, it's, of course, that Prabhupada writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's also Hare Hare Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopal Govindaram Sri Madhusudan. Prabhupada said that's also a Maha Mantra. You can chant that.
Yes, Maharaj. In the morning prayers, that is also recited.
Oh, good. Yes. So, the mind, of course, the mind is stubborn. How to do it? We just have to, constant practice and endeavor. It's not going to be easy, we know. We know the problem of the mind. It's a problem. Even Arjuna had trouble with the mind. But, by constant practice and detachment, we have to cultivate that detachment from the material. Why is our mind giving trouble? Often material attachments, we're holding on to something. We have to hold on to Krishna. The Buddhists, they want to let go of everything. They say don't hold on to any, but we say give up the material, hold on to Krishna. The more we hold on to Krishna, then we'll let go of the material. And so, Savaimana Krishna Padaravindayo. Fix your mind on the lotus feet of Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj.
Sometimes it helps just to meditate and to look at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and see the different marks on the lotus feet of Krishna and think about the significance of these different items on Lord Krishna's lotus feet. There's that gold which is used for controlling the elephant. So our mind is like the stubborn elephant. So that's one of the items on the lotus feet of Krishna, to control our stubborn mind. And there's a thunderbolt also, because in our mind there's a mountain of dirt, and that thunderbolt will shatter the mountain of dirt.
Yes, Maharaj.
So it's quite helpful to do that, to contemplate the different symbols on the lotus feet of Krishna. And then there's there's different nice verses which you can pick up. You can select for yourself.
Nice verses.
Different verses about the power of the holy name and the chant and how we can conquer the mind,
Yeah.
So there are many verses. At the end of the prayers by the personified Vedas in the 10th canto, you know that? Prayers by the personified Vedas, that chapter?
Yes, Maharaj.
In the 10th canto, it's a very big chapter. It's near the end, it's almost the last chapter of the 10th canto. And then there's a verse there at the end of the chapter, which is very good to recite. Prabhupada told us to wake the children up in the Gurukula in the morning by reciting that verse. It begins, Jayati Jananivaso, Devaki Jananivado, Yadavara Parshad Swair Dorbira Sanadharmam, Stira Chara Vrijanagnat Susmita Srimukena, Brajapura Vanitandam, Vardayan Kamadevam. That Lord Sri Krishna is he who is known as Jananivas, the ultimate resort of all living entities. He is also known as Devaki Nandan and Yashoda, the son of Devaki or the son of Yashoda. He's the guide of the Yadu dynasty, and with his strong arms he kills everything inauspicious. By his presence he destroys all inauspiciousness for all living entities moving and inert. His blissful smiling face always increases the lusty desires of the gopis. May he be all glorious and happy. And then there's another wonderful verse which you'll come across tomorrow, which is spoken by Devahuti about the power of the holy name and how the holy name actually it removes all parabdha karma. Parabdha karma is a problem, right? We've got all this bad karma, the things in our mind, the parabdha karma. So it's all destroyed by the chanting of the holy name. Yannama deha shravana nukirtanad yat pranavad yat smaranad api kachit vadyopi sadya shravanaya kalpate kutapanas tvam bhagavan nudarshanat. Right? Devahuti is speaking about the chanting of the holy name. That even one time chanting the holy name, It can make a person, even if he's born in a family of dog eaters, he becomes immediately qualified to perform the Vedic yajna. If he just simply once chants the holy name, or hears the glories of the Lord, or bows to the Lord, he becomes immediately qualified. So this destroys all the prarabdha karma. This is a verse to show the power of devotional service, that all of our prarabdha karma can be changed. It can all be removed just by one stroke of devotional service. So you have to engage your mind in reflecting on these things. You see, keep the mind always busy in the thought of Krishna. And that's why we're training the devotees to memorize these different slokas. You know, you should be reciting them continually and reflecting on them within your mind. Don't reflect in your mind on the past and things which happened in the past. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, forget the past which sleeps. It sleeps, it's gone, it's finished with. And ne'er the future dream at all, but live with times which are with thee, and progress thee shall call. Right?
Yes, Maharaj.
So this is the problem. We start hankering and lamenting. We're hankering about the future, we're lamenting about the past. That's the business of the mind. You have to transcend the mind. You have to get off the mind, off the platform of the mind. So use the mind to contemplate Krishna. Savaimana Krishna, Padarayin Vindar. The first thing, fix the mind on the lotus feet of Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Any other questions?
Asaf Prabhu, your hand is up. Do you have any questions?
Yes. It's one question about when Devahuti, you said about Devahuti that she was already liberated because she thought of the Lord as her son, because Kapila then appeared as her son. But actually in the beginning of Devahuti's story, we hear that she is serving very humbly, but then she has material desires. So I was just wondering whether she actually had the desire to have the Lord as her son, or is that simply, or not simply, but is it purely the mercy of Kardama Muni that he bestowed upon her, even without her willing?
Well, we're not actually told. I think it's more the mercy of the Lord himself, that the Lord himself chooses where he will come, where he will appear. So the Lord himself chose to come as the son of Devahuti.
So if I think of it as causeless mercy of the Lord because of his pure devotee Kardama Muni, is that a fair? As you said, Maharaj, it doesn't specify.
Well, Kardama Muni, he'd gone, right? He left home. He'd gone off for his perfection. Well, we could say Kardama Muni, but generally we would say Devahuti. It's more in relation to Devahuti because he chose Devahuti to give the teachings. He didn't choose Kardama Muni to give the teachings. It was Devahuti who got the Sankhya Yoga. Kardama Muni gone. But Lord Kapila is there to give this Sankhya Yoga to Devahuti. So she's the one who really got the mercy.
So it's the Lord's causeless mercy ultimately.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. We'll be hearing more about Devahuti tomorrow. That's, of course, the subject of tomorrow's chapter, the Devahuti's condition, her position. Okay. Any other questions there? All right, so we'll meet tomorrow to finish this Kapila Siksha. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.